Hello! Welcome to my Star Fox video. I originally had this recorded, ready to kind of go, I think it was last week, but unfortunately the footage got deleted. So here we are again, we're talking about Star Fox and my experiences with the series, because I've been kind of really getting into Star Fox as of late. I've been really enjoying it, especially on the GameCube. And it is the one you're probably thinking of, not the one that you would be not thinking of. But we're going to start from the beginning, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Star Fox 1, or in the West, well, in the West. In Europe, it was called Starwing. I believe there was a German engineering firm called Starvox, or something like that. Could be horribly wrong on that, but they went, right, we don't want to stuff ourselves with a big old lawsuit, thanks to Europe, so instead we're just going to call Star Fox Starwing. So Star Fox, or Starwing, was originally developed by Argonaut Games, which is was a UK-based studio, and is fairly renowned for the Super FX chip, which basically lets the SNES run three-dimensional games, which is great. It's quite choppy. It is quite choppy. It is quite a choppy game. However, it kind of laid the groundwork for what would come next. Now, if you know the stories, you know that Star Fox 2 wasn't released up until 2017. Unfortunately, yeah, I don't have a SNES Mini, so whatever on that front. But we're just going to kind of go the reverse order. And yeah, what can I say about this one? Graphically, it hasn't aged very well. I believe Sega had something similar with Virtua Racer in terms of a Super FX chip. I don't recall what the Sega version was called, but an interesting experiment in prolonging the fourth gen of consoles before moving into the kind of weird transitionary period that was 5th gen consoles, which remain one of my favourites. If my entire 3DO video collection wasn't any indication for you. But, yeah, Star Fox 1, or Starwing, or whatever you want to call it. Solid, good game. Argonaut didn't really develop any other Star Fox games outside of that one and 2, which is kind of a shame because they were, well, the impetus. They were the beginning of it. But then we moved on to the Nintendo 64. So, if you didn't know, Star Fox 2 was completed in its, mostly its entirety, but it was cancelled because, the N64 was coming out. And when you've got a brand new, very pretty, look at how amazing our graphics are, even over the PS1 and the Sega Saturn, you want the game to look pretty. So they remade it, sort of. They basically rebooted one of two reboots for the Star Fox series, and produced Star Fox 64, or Lilac Wars, as it was known in Europe, because, again, we don't want to get into trouble with that German engineering firm, assuming it is a German engineering. I should have looked that up before the video, but here we are. Lilac Wars is an interesting game for me. I like it. I will preface that now. I'm a big fan of Lilac Wars, but it's not my go-to. It's not my go-to in terms of single player. It's not my go-to in terms of multiplayer. It's not my favourite Star Fox game. It's fine. It's good. Personally, if you're going to play it nowadays, I would say play the re-release, or any re-release forthcoming, but I think the N64 full version is a solid way to go. I might cover its multiplayer, because I'm sort of dabbling with the idea of doing a series on forgotten multiplayers. So things like, say, Donkey Kong 64's multiplayer, or maybe the battle mode from Mario Kart 64 that nobody ever talks about, or maybe even the split screen of StarCraft 64, because that game had split screen in an RTS game on a console, which I've only ever encountered one other game like that, and yeah, it's a weird experience either way. But we'll see. Lilac Wars, though, solid game for a solid console. But yeah, not my favourite. I don't know. I feel, having played Star Fox 2, it's not a step down, but it certainly doesn't make use of everything that Argonaut had developed. But yeah, bit of a pity. Then we had a big old gap in time. We had a big old gap. We just had the ludicrously successful Star Fox, then the even more ludicrously successful Star Fox 64. And fans were like, ooh, the GameCube's been announced. This big, brand spanking new console. Nintendo's first truly HD, not really HD, but next-gen system, the next-gen console. I wonder what game they're going to make. Oh, Rare are developing it. They made a Zelda clone, and quite frankly, not a good one. I've played Zelda. I've played a lot of Zelda. This is bad Zelda. It's very bad Zelda. So, Rare are kind of on their way out from Nintendo around this time. Nintendo was focusing more on first-party development and somewhat third-party support, especially after the N64's fairly abysmal track record with third-party support, and that didn't get any better until a generation later with the Wii. But they looked at Rare and went, right, we can't really continue with Rare. We could buy out the company, but we're not really focusing on first-party at the moment, not in that way. Oh, they're working on Dinosaur Planet. They're working on this big Zelda-like game for the N64, and we kind of want them to keep that on our system now that Microsoft is buying them out. I know, let's make it a Star Fox game, because that's a Fox character. It led to probably the second worst game in the franchise. There's a bottom 3 for this franchise, and this is certainly in there. Even the R-Wing. The R-Wing's ugly, the characters are ugly, it's just... yeah. Thing is, if it hadn't been a Star Fox game, I think it would have just been fine, but it isn't. It is a Star Fox game, and it's a bad one. But, yeah. I was lucky enough to find a memory stick. I say lucky. Lucky enough to find a memory stick where most of the game was largely completed, and I'm going to be honest with you, it doesn't get any better. So I've played early stage Star Fox Adventures, I've played late stage Star Fox Adventures, and the combat is still awkward, clunky, and horrible. The puzzles are shit. Like, it's just not a fun game. It's kind of a miserable experience, especially after coming off of these two. I mean, who wanted a third-person action-adventure fucking Star Fox game? Nobody. Nobody wanted that. Should have just made it Dinosaur Planet, maybe bought the characters off of Rare, done. Sorted. Problem solved. That way you don't besmirch your Star Fox name with crap, and you get to keep Rare's property. Done. The only other, I don't think Nintendo own any of Rare's other properties. They do own the games that they developed using Nintendo's characters, obviously, with the Donkey Kong Country trilogy and Donkey Kong 64, which is a whole other kettle of fish. But as far as we knew at the time, that was it. That was it for Star Fox. We'd had 2 pretty solid games, one that was maybe cancelled, the rumoured Star Fox Virtual Boy, which unlikely to have existed. Then we got something special. So, tail end of the GameCube's lifespan, I believe 2006, 2004, 2005, 2006, getting towards the end of filtering out the GameCube and replacing it with a other console made of gimmickium. But we got an interesting collaboration. We got the Triforce. Now, the Triforce was an arcade machine developed by Nintendo, Sega, and Namco. And in doing so, they would go, oh, we can develop arcade games that can also be used, or ported, maybe, to the GameCube. And that's what led us to my absolute favourite Star Fox game, Star Fox Assault. Star Fox Assault is a absolutely beautiful game. Its story is actually genuinely compelling. Its gameplay is great, the best in the series. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's short and linear and there's no branching paths and blah blah blah, but in terms of freedom of movement and the ability to kind of take each of the stages as your own without being led on a hook is kind of appreciated. It's a good, don't get me wrong, I love rail shooters. I love Panzer Dragoon. I'm a very big fan of Orta, which released, I believe, 2 years prior to this. But there's something delightful in the ability to just kind of pilot your fucking R-Wing where you want to. Its multiplayer was solid. A lot of unlockable content that I haven't actually gotten around to unlocking. If you unlock all the silver things, you get to play Xevious, because this was developed by Namco. It was one of 2 games for the Triforce that were developed also for the GameCube, because the GameCube is just basically a Triforce, but slightly more powerful. It's what runs Mario Kart GP and Mario Kart GP 2. It also runs F-Zero AX, if you have ever heard of that. And there was a Star Fox arcade game sort of in development. Now, we don't know how far into development. Unfortunately, like F-Zero AX, there's not a lot of... Well, no. Unlike F-Zero AX, there's not a lot of information on it. I personally don't know anything outside the fact it was being developed for that. It was supposed to have some sort of compatibility with Star Fox Assault, much like how GX has compatibility with AX for F-Zero. But yeah, we never got that. As kind of awesome as that would have been at like an arcade Star Fox game, like if I'm ever going to own an arcade machine, it would have been that. Alternatively, it will be F-Zero AX. If that thing wasn't like 20 to 30k, and finding one is borderline impossible. So, that's fine, I doubt it. That for me is kind of where F-Zero, or sorry, not F-Zero, is where Star Fox sort of peaked. Because then the following game was Star Fox Command. Which, here's the kicker. I don't mind the fanfiction-y writing. I don't mind the RTS-style gameplay. I don't even mind the controls. I think for a DS game, they're actually as good as you could control an R-Wing until we got an analog thumbstick. But its biggest downside for me, its margin of error is so minute that you have to do these multiple stages and multiple battles all over again for the slightest mistake. And that I've played this game for maybe the equivalent of half an hour, and it was awful. It was terrible, and I don't think I'll ever touch it again. I didn't pick it up for this video. I picked it up a while ago. Admittedly, I did pick up one game for this video, but I'll get into that later. It was kind of another dip. So we'd had 2 highs and a dip, 1 high and a dip. And unfortunately, Star Fox Command was kind of the game that killed the Lilac Wars continuity. So we'd already had one continuity killed with the Argonaut timeline, who do you want to call it that? Argonaut series. Then we had that with the main Lilac Wars, or 64 timeline. And we got one final little nod of appreciation to that, which was Star Fox 64 3D. This game's great. Admittedly, it's gimmicky as hell with its stupid gyro controls, because if you're playing the DS or 2DS or 3DS or whatever on the train or maybe in a car, you don't want to be doing this, trying to aim bloody left, right, and freaking centre. But you turn that off, you've got an extremely good port, extremely good looking port with a really robust and solid multiplayer experience on the go. If you're going to play Lilac Wars, this is an extremely good way to do it. But at the same time, I feel that you'd maybe be missing out on some of the other stuff. Like Lilac Wars had a whole multiplayer mode on it, involving the Landmaster and involving like on foot sections as well. As bizarre as that is, long before Assault came along and took that concept and perfected it. You're missing that with 64. You've only got the dog fighting. Although download play, so you only need 2, 3, 4. You only need about 4 DSs and 1 game cartridge. So not bad. Then we got a break. And in that break, we got Amiibo. We got Amiibo for Smash Bros. We got Fox, which is nice. We got Falco. And we got Wolf, who... No, if I can avoid it, I do not use Wolf in Smash. He is awful. He is terrible. If you're going to play any of them, play Fox. Falco is literally the same. There's no point playing him. But those Amiibo are nice. I will freely admit I did pick those up for this video. That was one of the 2 things I did. And you know what? Worth it. They're very pretty. They look very cool. And they do work with the following games we got. Now, around this time, Nintendo had been on a big kick. A nice streak of very, very good E3s. And then we get to this new one. We get to 2016. And we get to Satoru Iwata, who was the kind of face of Nintendo at the time, along with Reggie Fils-Aimé. We'd had some great stuff like the announcement of Smash 4 with the Mii fighters beating the ever-loving snot out of each other. Great. His final E3 revealed, quite frankly, the worst Star Fox game, which was Zero. Which sucks, because this game signaled kind of a death knell for me on a few things. I'm a big Wii U guy. I love the Wii U. I've got an absolute bucket load of games. Not a complete set because I'm not crazy, but here's the kicker. I bought the limited edition for 50 quid, and I've played this game once. But it really was the death knell. It was a game developed to be an excuse. It was an excuse for the Wii U's gamepad. It was an excuse to develop that console, to make its gamepad the center and focus. And it's awful. It's mostly the controls. It's the fact that you've got the gamepad, which is all well and good, but then you've got the screen and you're like... Here's the kicker. This controls your aiming, but you have to see where you're flying on the screen. So you're doing this. And it is unplayable. It is extraordinarily unplayable. I've never played a game like that, and quite frankly, I never will again. This game is awful. Now the Amiibo do work with it. I think Fox and Falco unlock the kind of classic R-Wing from 64, which I think is stronger but has less damage. Then if you use Wolf, I think you unlock something else. I don't remember, and quite frankly, I don't care. This game is dreadful. But it was really 2 things. It was the death knell of my love of the Wii U at the time, because this was a year before the thing was discontinued, and we got the final game in the form of Breath of the Wild. I know that wasn't the final game, but it really was the last one. That was it. It was literally just Star Fox Zero. However, it did come with another game, that limited edition. It came with Star Fox Guard. Now, Star Fox Guard is a continuation of something called Project Guard, which is a game that was in development for the Wii U by I want to say Miyamoto. Yes, it was Miyamoto, because he was also developing something called Project Giants. Project Giants looked awesome. You control a big mech. You beat the shit out of each other. Nice. Did we get that? No, we got Star Fox Guard. It's fine. It's a good, solid tower defense game. If you use the amiibo on it, you get, like, aerial support from them, which is pretty sick, but I don't think anyone on Earth went, oh, I want a game about Slippy. I want a game about the single most irritating character in Star Fox as a whole. And that's kind of it. That was kind of the last major oomph for Star Fox. That was it. We haven't had a new one since. I think a lot, like I'm constantly saying with every direct they announce, oh, I'll eat my own hat if they announce a new F-Zero game that looks good. Or like a new mainline F-Zero game. I'll eat my hat if they announce a new Star Fox. I'll eat my hat if they release Kid Icarus Uprising 2 or a port of the DS version. I mean, come on. Sitting on money. But that's a long-running problem with Nintendo. But it wasn't the death knell. It wasn't the death knell. So there are 3 other games that have sort of released in this time. We have had, in 2017, we got the SNES Mini. Now, I don't have a SNES Mini, but they finally released Star Fox 2 officially. I didn't want to waste money on a SNES Mini, so I bought a reproduction copy of Star Fox 2. And you know what? It's very, very good. It's actually genuinely very, very good. It takes kind of an RTS approach, similar to Command, but does it better because the gameplay is actually focused. It's a very busy game. It's a very busy game. Very, very, very busy. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's a very good thing. Because it actually makes the game playable. Now, it's very hard to get a reproduction copy of this because it does require the Super FX chip, and unless you've got someone who's willing to cannibalize a copy of the original Star Fox, you need to track down someone who's got one of these already made. And I did. I tracked this down in September. I believe it was made using a copy of Doom. A copy of SNES Doom, which I think is one of the few other games that used the Super FX chip on that system. There weren't many. There were a few, but there weren't many. But yeah, that was the last official release of a Star Fox game by Nintendo. But there was hope around this time. There was a showcase of what a new Star Fox could be. There was a game that, whilst it didn't sell well at all, because it was a Toys to Life game on the real tail end of Toys to Life games. This is after Skylanders was popular. This is after Amiibo had reached their peak. Like, we still get them, but they're not as common. The usage of them in games is not as common. The game tanked. But the one version of it that sold the best was the Switch version. And that's because Starlink Battle for Atlas had fucking Fox in it. And you could get the R-Wing, which is extraordinarily cool. Now, if you don't know anything about this game, it's basically No Man's Sky for children. That's the best way I could say it. That's the best way I could put it. I really took to this game. It was probably, outside of Dust and Elysian Tale, the first major Switch release I ever bought. I bought it for myself for Christmas in 2018, because it was down to 20 quid. And I was like, you know what? I'm buying an R-Wing, and I'm buying that game for 20 quid. For a console I didn't even own at the time. I didn't get my Switch until like 6-7 months later in 2019, and you know what? it was kind of worth the wait because this game was solid. And rather nicely, all of its components are cheap, or were cheap, apart from one of them. But Starlink went, hey, that open world environment, we've got that. We've got a pseudo RTS style building and deployment mechanic where you take back planets and you can build a variety of structures, and these structures will produce units that then go out and actively destroy the antagonists. Now we're going to throw in Star Fox and throw in an, whilst not amazing, okay plot. I don't use any other ship in that game. I mean, why would you? It's the fucking Arwing. The only time I've ever used another ship is for the 2 other versions of that game I have. I did buy the PS4 version, and I found a copy for my wife in TK Maxx for a £5 back in 2021, which was weird. TK Maxx is a kind of bargain basement shopping brand in the UK if you're watching this from overseas. Kind of like clothing focused Walmart, I suppose. But we haven't seen a new Star Fox game since. It's been 5 years. I don't think it's the longest dip, but oh no, it might be the longest dip. It might be one of the longest dips we ever had for not even re-releases. There's no Star Fox game outside of Starlink on the Switch, and that sucks because this game is brilliant. It's very good. It was flat out one of my favourites of 2019. I did count it then because I didn't play it till 2019, but it was one of my favourite games of that year, alongside Fire Emblem Three Houses. But go watch my Fire Emblem video if you don't know anything about my love of modern Fire Emblem. But that's where we've been kind of left, and we've since only really had one option. I said there were 3 games, and they were Star Fox 2, Starlink, and the fan project, Star Fox Event Horizon, which is being developed by Undying Nephilim. Now, I've been familiar with Undying Nephilim for a while. He frequents the Spacebattles forums, and I've kept up with his work on Hyrule Conquest, Hyrule Conquest, which I believe is a Total War mod that's very good, and he's in the process of finishing. But Star Fox Event Horizon is a mod for the game Free Space 2. Now, I don't own a PC at the moment, just because of costs and other work-related shenaniganry that's currently going on. But my aim in the future is to get a hold of Free Space 2, download this mod, and play the shit out of it. Because somehow, the guy has managed to rope in the original voice cast from Star Fox Assault. And I'm a big fan of that. I like Crystal. I know Crystal is a controversial character choice because she comes from what a lot of people consider to be the worst Star Fox game. And you know what? They're right. But she's a freaking good voice actress. The original voice cast are still amazing, still do the job really well. The cutscenes look gorgeous. The game looks fantastic. And if you're going to go support Undying Nephilim, go do it. I will tag him in the I'll tag him in the description below. If you haven't checked out Spacebattles, it's a really good forum. I frequent it quite a lot. It's forums.spacebattles.com. So go sign up. It's one of the oldest forums still active on the internet, from the halcyon days of 1998. It might be older, actually. It's quite old. It's bordering 30. Or it's bordering 25. Oh no, it is 25. Jeez. Yeah. Might be older. Could be wrong. Anyway. Go check out Undying Nephilim. I do believe he's running a Patreon, but I'm not sure what that's really for. So go check that out. And okay. That's Star Fox, guys. A flawed series, but a series I adore. especially some of the games, even the weirder ones. You know, I like Guard. Guard is fine. Guard is solid. With some fantastic spin-offs and a very, 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 very good fan game. So, go check out Undying Nephilim, as I've said. Go check out Spacebattles. And that will be me signing off for another week.